All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're in Genesis chapter 11. Bereshit, chapter 11. It says, the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. I got a question about this verse. I'll be honest, I don't have an answer right now, but I wonder what is the distinction between Genesis chapter, or what is, like, if you see a seemingly contradiction, what is the harmony? That's basically my question. What would be the harmony from chapter 11, verse 1 versus chapter 10, verse 31? Remember, it goes through the whole, like a little genealogy list. And 10 verse 31 says, these are the sons of Shem by their families, according to their languages, plural, lands and nations. And then it's interesting because in Genesis chapter 11, it says, the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So I didn't know how to make sense of that right now. I didn't look into it too much. Literally, when I just saw it. Milo?
I'm going to say it's timing, because it's going to go back into the generations of Shem. And this is at Babel where, who made Babel? Nimrod, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just the timing of where things began to break out, because in 31 it says, these are the sons of Shem after their families and after their tongues. And eventually we're going to get into that lineage again, to where things begin to break off and the languages divide.
So let me get this correct. You're saying that chapter 10 was future, and then verse 11 went back a little bit?
It's going into actual story time, yeah.
That was before certain lineages.
So yeah, because in verse 25 of 10 it says, and unto Eber were born two sons, the name of one Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name Yoktan.
Right.
I think that's where the division begins to,
that's pretty good,
to come from.
That's pretty good. Anybody got any objections or any questions? That sounds pretty good to me. So chapter 10, because consider this. Nobody's telling us there's no like introduction stuff in the scriptures to break down the plot, the setting, the who wrote it and when it was. So this is stuff we read from commentators and theologians and scholars and stuff like that. But you can imagine, just by reading the book of Genesis, you can tell that it was written in the future, pointing backwards. You could tell it wasn't written like the Gospels were. Even the Gospels were written going backwards, but it's not really like somebody's writing it as they go along. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's a lot of people assimilate the book of Genesis to Moshe, being written during his time. But so yeah, you could expect, maybe some going back, going forward.
And even naturally though, I'm just thinking nowadays too, like the United States, right? We talked about this I think last week, or different dialects, or even Spanish. Let's take Spanish, for example. So someone from Spain speaks slightly different from someone from Puerto Rico. We understand each other. We could perfectly understand each other. But there are different phrases, different idioms that sometimes we use, different pronunciations. So I feel like as people are moving away from each other, you're starting to build your cultures, quote unquote, and now your dialects start to come in. At one point, you could all understand each other no matter when you get together. But at some point, who's going to say, you know what, that common language, I'm shutting that down. And confusing you guys in Babel. So
right.
That's kind of my thought.
All right. Cool. Thank you for that, wife. That was good for me for Genesis 11:1. All right. So it says the whole earth was of one language. Does somebody want to ask something? Question? No? All right. Make sure you mute your phones if you're not talking. It says the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Verse 2. As they traveled from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they lived there. They said to one another, come, let's make bricks and burn them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. Milo?
All right, so I just want to go back to Genesis 10, verses 9 and 10. It says, speaking of Nimrod, and he was a warrior and a hunter before Yahuwah, Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the warrior hunter before Yahuwah, and the beginning of his kingdom, Nimrod's kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. So now we're starting to talk about these people in Shinar. So just going back to the people from Nimrod and his kingdom and such.
Excellent. Pound. Good job. All right, verse 4. They said, come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower whose top reaches to the sky. And let's make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad on the surface of the whole earth. Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower. I find that to be very interesting. Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower. Was Yahuwah not no longer in heaven on his throne because he came down? No, he's everywhere all at the same time. And the tower, which the children of men built. Yahuwah said, behold, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing will be withheld from them, which they intend to do. In other words, I guess they're going to be prosperous in everything that they do, right? Depending on your translation. I think some translations say that. Verse 7, come, let's go down, and there confuse their language.
Can I say something?
That they may not understand one another's speech. Go ahead, Dero.
For verse 7, come and having gone down, let us. Now this is supposed to be Yahuwah talking, right? Who's he talking to?
Who's he talking to? Yahuwah's the one that came down.
Right. Let us make man. Let us come down. Okay, yeah. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I got a question. When they say, who's us? Let us. Who's us?
Yeah. Some people will say Yahuwah is talking to the angels, which it's a possibility. I could see angels being able to do miraculous things. We see that all throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
Angels have power. They have ability to do miracles, and
in the book of Enoch, they have roles what they do in the Shamayim.
Yeah.
If like to take the book of Enoch, but some also believe it could be Messiah.
Is it a possibility he was talking maybe to the other third of the angels that left heaven?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Because wouldn't he be like more command his archangels or the head general guys, his buddies, to go with him instead of saying, let us?
Well, let's think about this. I know the timelines of all the Genesis we just talked about, flip-flops, but didn't we already read about the angels, the sons of God coming down with the daughters of men? You weren't here for that, Jose, but that was in a previous chapter that was already read. So I think maybe that already happened. So I doubt that he will be talking to the fallen ones.
Oh, okay.
They're already fallen. So that would be a better answer to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like it's all an assumption because we don't have scripture that tells us, not yet, just based off of this verse. I don't think we can get an answer. It's all jumping to conclusions, but I would like to believe that it's Yahuwah and Yahusha talking, just like it was in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, when Yahuwah said, let us make man in our image. I don't believe he was talking to the angels. He was talking to the only other person he could be talking to would be Yahusha. They're both God. They're both Elohim. Anyway, let's see if we can get some more clarity moving forward, see if we can get a clearer answer on that. So, it says, so Yahuwah scattered them abroad from there on the surface of all the earth. They stopped building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there Yahuwah confused the language of all the earth. From there, Yahuwah scattered them abroad on the surface of all the earth. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like to give a clear answer right there. I know people are not going to like this, and that's okay. They're going to look for other scriptures where this happens too, but It didn't say Yahuwah and the angels confused their languages. It said Yahuwah did. And I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, but that's just Yahuwah getting the glory. Just like if Yahuwah sends people to do something, it ends up saying Yahuwah did that. I get that. That's a little wiggle room there. You know, I guess you could throw that in there. You know what I mean? So this to me would not be a strong oneness verse. I won't use this. I probably wouldn't use this as evidence. It's not strong because people will duck and dodge and try to find a way out of it. I try to go for scriptures that people can't wiggle their way out of. This to me isn't one. This to me leaves a little wiggle room. So, but I'll move forward. The point is what? Yahuwah confused their languages. There was a time where people had one language, and here Yahuwah scattered them, and according to verse 8, abroad, and confused their language. Verse 9, therefore its name was called Babel, because Yahuwah confused the language of all the earth. From there, Yahuwah scattered them abroad on the surface of all the earth. This is the history of the generations of... You want me to stop? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and this Babel is the same as the word that's used for Babylon. And we know a lot of times that, all the time, nice. Babylon is not associated with any righteousness that I can recall ever, and that it will be destroyed. So it's just like it's like the beginning. That's why I assume that the beginning of Babel was always from wickedness to the end. So their intentions of making a name for themselves, I find is, I mean, for me it would be an assumption, but I think it was all based off of wickedness, not off of righteousness. So
good point.
And Babel would be just like when you're babbling, nobody understands you. You're just babbling on blah 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 blah.
Yep, that's correct. Let me look up that word real quick.
To be confused. It's a verb.
It's called confusion.
Yeah, to confuse. It's a verb. Babel's a verb. To confuse.
Yep, so Babel is H894, the Hebrew word Babel. Confusion by mixing. So Babel or Babylon, the ancient site and or capital of Babylonia, situated on the Euphrates. So
I like that saying. Well, you know, you hear Yahuwah is not an Elohim of confusion as well.
Yep.
I have a question. So were they speaking Hebrew back then, or what language were they speaking before it was all split up? It was he said they were speaking one language. So what language was that?
I wanna say Hebrew. I wanna say the language of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, was Hebrew. I don't have any other reason to believe that it would have been a different language.
Right. Okay. That's wow.
And then when the languages were confused, you had the different languages, but you still had Hebrew. So, which Abraham spoke. We'll get to that, you know, Abraham. So I believe his father would have spoken Abraham in his lineage going up.
So I got another question. I'm sorry, but
Go ahead.
So when he scattered them all over the earth, that was right after the flood. So basically, what I'm kind of getting here is we all came from that lineage at one point. If he scattered them all over the earth, then that was Noah and his clan, right? His people.
Absolutely. Every human being on the planet comes from Noah, Noah's wife, and we all come from Noah. Everybody comes from Noah, right. Definitely.
Got it. I got it.
Where the split happens is not everybody comes from the three sons of Noah. So
everybody does. Just which son do you come from?
Right, like, yeah, you get what I'm saying. So. All right, the word Babel here is also used for Babylon in a lot of other scriptures. So I just wanted to share that. According to the Strong's, it shows the different ways that word is used. That's all I got. Anybody else have any comments or any questions before we move on to a different phase of this chapter? All right, stop the recording.